Hey guys, Brass Facts here. You've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail, you know what this is. Over the course of a year, members of the Nova Group shooting a 6.8 spear with a legit hybrid ammunition for 2,000 rounds. To give you mostly mine, but our complete thoughts, if you did the math on this, you'll very quickly realize that we're shooting approximately $8,000 of ammunition out of a $5,000 gun. YouTube is not doing that well for me. In fact, YouTube is not doing that well for anyone except maybe Grantham. So in order to pull that off, to shoot that much, like $13,000 of equipment, you know, some things had to happen. Namely, Luke from TFB, the guy that actually is in possession of this firearm, got it from SIG. Furthermore, he got the ammunition from SIG. So none of us here are actually spending any money on this review. It's actually one of the cheaper reviews in that regard that I've done. It's really only cost me time. So their expectation to him is that Luke from TFB writes a blog on TFB, as far as I know. However, I'm not actually affiliated with TFB, and Luke only shot about 50% of the ammunition through this. I handled the other half. So interestingly enough, I'm able to bring you this video of a very high round count on the 6.8 spear with the legit 6.8 hybrid ammunition while being affiliated with no one.
Cha-ching, cha-ching. You know, just cash register sound. Or maybe we can play some Prices Right stuff.
Just kidding, you've walked into another ad section, this time another one from Venture Surplus. Look, I'm about to go shooting and I could get a Maverick burrito, but instead I'm just going to bring an MRE. However, when you have first world problems, you have a question about which MRE we're going to bring. I could bring the cold weather, the objectively best MRE meal out there, because it's not actually an MRE, it's a Mountain House meal. But that requires way too much work, so we're not going to bring that. I could bring humanitarian... No. We can bring First Strike, but I really don't need that much amount of food, so that's out. I can, of course, bring the old standby, but as the members of the Nova Group cartel have recently figured out, we're actually kind of a big fan of these guys right here, the Halal MREs. They're slightly more expensive, but they actually taste pretty damn good for what they are. These, for those that are wondering, are essentially what the interpreter is supposed to eat. Kind of like, I don't know, koshers for terps.
Oh no.
Oh no.
It's rubbery for some reason.
Oh no.
The flavor's good.
If you want some MREs, go ahead, go to Venture Surplus, get yourself some MREs, and go ahead and eat them while watching us on the Nova Group eat all of these MREs, the taste test, every single one of them, and ranking them. Okay, back to 6.8. So, approximately 33.3%, repeating of course, percentage of you probably are not too spun up on what exactly the 6.8 gun and the NGS program is. So in order for you to actually understand what the hell's going on in this video, let me give you a quick abridged version. Quite a while ago now, actually, time sure does fucking fly, the DoD issued the NGSW program. In it, the program requirements were of a rifle of a certain overall length, fairly short, with a added suppressor, shooting a round of a fairly high grainage. The winner of the program was Sig Sauer with the XM5, XM7. In order to achieve what the program requirements asked of it, out of a standard firearm, right? Some of the other contenders use bullpups to do this, but the Sig design is a standard non-bullpup design. Required, quite frankly, just insane chamber pressures to achieve the program requirements. Traditional casings use all brass because it is very useful and consistent when it comes to stuff like reliability, working with machine gun belts and links, all of the above, right? But if you subject a casing, all brass casing, to 80,000 PSI, it has a tendency for the ass to get blown out of it, which is sort of one of the weak points of the case. In order to get the best of both worlds, to handle that 80,000 PSI and get the corresponding velocity, they have created the hybrid case, which is essentially a steel back end and a brass forend. So that's the NGSW. It's the rifle, in this case the 6.8 spear. It is a round, often called the GP and SP round, more on that in a bit, as well as a optic that all pair together to kind of create this weapon system that is designed to not just offer excellent AP characteristics with the SP round, but overall, in general, long-range performance, terminal performance, barrier defeat, as well as massively increased hit probability out to range. At least that's the sales pitch.
Before I even want to discuss the 6.8 concept, the idea of a battle rifle, or frankly, some of the issues the program has been having, and oh my god, there's been a lot, it's best to just talk about the rifle, the gun itself, because regardless of all other factors, at the end of the day, a 6.8 Spear is just a SIG MCX Heavy. Or rather, the M6 Heavy is based off the SIG Spear, whatever. The MCX is far more prolific in civilian circles, and, well, we, as a collective, have a lot more time on that. I was surprised to learn that the 6.8, outside of stouter springs and the heaviest barrel of all time, is essentially just a base MCX. Modern mirrored controls, folding stock, adjustable gas, sleek paint job, partial monolithic upper rail, and for some reason, two very overbuilt ways to charge the rifle. And really, outside of the removal of the forward assist, it's an MCX. But that also means the 6.8 has all of the problems the MCX has. Remember that whole handguard barrel shift fiasco? Somehow, the rifle with the most overbuilt looking handguard of all time is one of the most flimsy ones I've ever used.
Oh, I can hear it.
I can move the laser.
The forward handguard can be flexed with moderate pressure, causing POI shift for anything mounted up there. The whole thing is secured by 4 screws, where if the bottom 2 screws come loose, you can flex the whole thing so much that it contacts the barrel, and good luck getting them tight. They're basically RMR size screws, so they're completely unsuited for this. Every time I ask someone who seriously runs their MCX how their experience has been, the same thing comes up. The screws come loose under, 1,000 rounds from the factory, give or take. Now, you can red Loctite them, as blue won't work since they're right next to the barrel nut, and that somewhat solves the problem. But man, what a flimsy little thing to hold up the entire rail section. Accuracy on the platform seems very middle of the road, with all of the models not really pushing out impressive groups, even with match ammo capping out at about 2 MOA. The gun itself shoots like complete asshole recoil-wise in the stock configuration, regardless of what caliber you feed through this thing. More on that in a bit. And unfortunately, you can't really tune it because that overbuilt gas regulator up front is just there to give you 2 gas settings. All this extra stuff, though, means this thing is European 80s battle rifle heavy at 9.4 pounds for a stock, clean rifle. So yeah, this platform is a textbook example of over-engineered and hilariously under-designed. I wouldn't call these bad actually, no, I would call these bad. I've shot a lot of battle rifles, and a lot of them are quite lackluster, but this one really takes the cake, especially with the large failure points on the handguard, the lackluster accuracy, and the frankly ridiculous price tag of $4,000 for the 308 variant and $5,000 for the 6.8. Before proceeding, we need to get some things out of the way real quick. What I, and basically every single other YouTuber, is shooting out of their 6.8 Spear is the 113 grain reduced range round, not the general purpose round. The 113 reduced range is designed to be easier to make, and perhaps more importantly, to keep 5.56 and 308 rated ranges from not getting annihilated by the tungsten GP tip. Furthermore, I, and basically everyone else, is also shooting all of this stuff out of a 16-inch rifle. This is in contrast to the genuine article, which is supposed to be a 13-inch rifle shooting a 120 grain bullet at around 3100 FPS. I actually had to completely redo this section like 3 times because up until this point, I thought the weight of the GP round was 135 grain, my velocity numbers were off, you name it. And then immediately this video dropped where the gentleman has access to the 120 grain general purpose rounds that he's hand-loaded to about 3100 FPS, which is presumed to be approximately how it would perform. So thank you, sir, for the data, and yeah. Now, both the 16-inch barrel and the 113 switching to the 120 grain won't make a massive difference recoil-wise. Back-of-the-hand napkin math and some anecdotal experience seems to compare the differences between the two with, say, 5.56 and 6 arc. Not that the gun is recoiling like 5.56 and 6 arcs, it's the difference. However, a theme that you're going to hear throughout the video is this gun is very much teetering on the edge of shootability for a lot of even experienced shooters, so do keep that in mind, that this isn't quite the genuine article in terms of recoil. We can also approximate the external ballistic performance of the GP round with other hybrid loadings like the SIG or Nosler precision rounds, which got around 2950 with a 150 grain projectile. Why I ultimately am bringing this up, the GP round is pushing somewhere near 80,000 psi. The reduced range round and these SIG OTM rounds are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60,000 psi, maybe, who knows, SIG certainly won't tell us. This, alongside with the 3-inch longer barrel, means that any commentary I can give on firearm wear patterns, the hot button topic when it comes to the NGSW, is unfortunately mostly irrelevant. I've been rolling in a bunch of pictures here, but as you can see, it's fine, right? In fact, better than fine. It looks to be quite smooth wear patterns. Okay, that out of the way, let's get to some actual shooting. Luke, Hop, and I, all members of the Nova Group cartel, have shot this gun over the course of the last year, with the first major outing shooting close-range drills, 10, 25, and 110 yards offhand. Outside of the 6.8 induced TBI, the gun performed fine-ish, but it was incredibly harshly recoiling, and we also experienced 2 malfunctions. I feel bad for anyone that bought this gun because the 6.8 113 grain stuff is all over the place, accuracy-wise, at least initially, when we were sporting 8 to 10 MOA. Anyway, that was a pretty, whatever range trip. We got the feel for the gun. Hop and Luke brought it to Thunder Ranch. Luke got a new batch of 113 grainers, which was far better than the shotgun pattern the original was doing. This grouped about 2 MOA, though it did experience notable strings and flyers. The SIG and Nosler specialty rounds did a little better, also 2 MOA, but they were far more consistent with tighter delta V spreads. The rifle got shot hard, passed around like the village bicycle to the entire Thunder Ranch cadre. A couple malfunctions, though this time only on the PMag and Lancers. The OEM mags did fine.
Bottom right.
Bottom right.
I think you're way high.
Oh, it did it again!
Yeah, it's those Lancers. They
It's the
don't fucking
Lancers.
work.
USA! USA!
So bottom right.
USA! 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 M1 Garand!
The range performance at Thunder Ranch was a mixed bag. On one hand, it was doing, big boy 6mm things, shooting extremely flat out to 400-500 yards, requiring very little input from the shooter beyond just aim kind of high, and was still functional beyond that, even with very poor dope charts as, let's be frank, these guys were setting up a gun that they haven't owned long term. However, a lot of people pointed out that the gun was also recoiling a lot, preventing spotting of splashes at distance, making one very dependent on a spotter to spot misses.
So real quick, while I've been working on this video, obviously the chip that's been implanted in my brain and your brain too from Jeffrey Bezos has sensed I'm working on 6.8 content, and now my YouTube feed is flooded with 6.8 videos. And I was watching the 9-hole review video of it, and Henry was shooting his 308 variant, and he was similarly complaining about it being very difficult to say scoped in on the gun at longer ranges to watch misses and impacts and all that kinds of stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, the actual genuine article is going to have significantly more recoil. I find this all very curious in that one of the main objectives of the 6.8 Spear is to increase effectiveness and hit probability at range, but even really good shooters are struggling to shoot the lesser recoil variants of this gun effectively at range. So, yeah, just an observation, I guess.
So anyway, after all that, Hop brought the gun out to Utah, Operation Changing of the Guard. It has that dumbass name because we need to name all of the footage folders of these events, so they all get cutesy dumb names. And when we were, planning this trip, we noticed that SIG's website has "Changing of the Guard" in tiny size 10 font on the website, and it became sort of a meme. So, like most people our age, our humor is just repeating the same phrase over and over again until it becomes funny, and that was our phrase for the trip: "Changing of the Guard." At this point, Luke, God bless his soul, had managed to snag the SIG 6.8 SLX suppressor, which instantly improves the firearm tenfold.
Alright, suppressor test, here we go. Oh, that's so much more tolerable.
Wow.
And I haven't even turned on the gas. You gotta shoot this, dude. You gotta shoot it.
Oh wow.
It's night and day, dude.
That's actually nice to shoot. What the fuck?
Yeah, like we were doing it wrong all
I think the clip kind of explains it, but let me state it once again for the record. This gun goes from a really bad gun to a very quite tolerable battle rifle with the inclusion of a suppressor or some way to mitigate the recoil. All you gotta do is pony up $1,600, baby. Another person I'm talking to for my metrics on the 308 variant of this gun reported similarly vast improvements by putting anything other than the base flash hider on the gun. Without the brake, he said this gun was the worst battle rifle he's ever shot, and with the brake, it was something that he found shot better than his Mark 17, though a large part of that is probably due to the fact that, well, there's a 6-month-old infant worth of weight on the nose of the gun. As mentioned, it also fixed our reliability issue with PMags and Lancers, and we had no other malfunctions over the rest of the 800 plus rounds that I shot in the dusty Badlands of Utah. The suppressor itself is, I mean, it obviously made the gun shoot better, but I'll be frank, I don't have enough experience with low back pressure cans on large bore guns to actually have an accurate commentary here. All I know is that it weighs an absolute metric shitload, seems to be quite durable, and of course has horrific flash and glows like a popsicle under night vision or even visible to the naked eye. And really, you know, for 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor, most of these cans are really more so making the gun concuss less and to cut down on the recoil more so than just be this really quiet thing. Granted, once again, we've done testing on this in the past, and these cans do work for downrange signature reduction when you pass like the 200-yard mark or so, and really do well to kind of obfuscate sound. Anyway, we're, I think, approximately at about 1,000 rounds at this point, so back to our Utah trip. The first outing was up in the mountains with variable unknown distance targets, 2, 3, and 550 for rapid engagements. Yeah, I know, 550 ain't shit for a gun like this. It's just what we set up at the time. But due to issues we ran into, spoilers, you'll see why we didn't push it beyond that. Starting out, the gun did quite well for something I wasn't too familiar with, keeping up more or less with my, comfortable 6.5 Creedmoor. Both rifles crushed it, with the exception of the 6.8 missing one target, because I sailed it overhead at the 300, because I think I just vastly overestimated how much I needed to hold. Fortunately, the gun was very manageable with the SLX can, and I was able to spot my misses and make rapid corrections, and stay scoped in the entire time. However, when we repositioned, out of nowhere, my consistency rapidly went down the gutter, with less than 20% hit rates. Swapping back to the 6.5 Creedmoor, and boom, I was getting 5 out of 5 hits, even with hellish wind. I mean, gee, look at that grass go. That was a windy day. Now, I'm not the best shooter of all time, but something was clearly up here.
Hey, Hop. You know, that gun program, I think it's called NGSW. You know, the one that's meant to replace all the guns in inventory? It's really accurate. Oh, wait, sorry, I fucked that up. It's the least accurate gun I've ever shot in my life.
At the time, we chalked it up to ammo, but as I've already alluded to, it was actually probably the handguard coming loose, either pressing into the barrel itself, or the gun was just experiencing massive vertical stringing due to the very loose front end. But Hop was literally dying as it was 130 degrees today at altitude, something he's not used to, and we decided to call it quits before I killed everyone's favorite lesbian.
Hop, what's the lesson about operating with 6.5 Grendel, 6.8, and other heavy calibers in the mountains of Utah?
You have to sacrifice ammunition for water.
We went ahead and did a night shoot where the rail issue became obvious to us when our laser shifted several feet off target anytime you kind of even touched the front handguard. We could also literally hear aluminum creaking every time we stocked up the rifle. So we tightened down the screws and everything was hunky-dory, at least for the remaining day of shooting, and that sort of ended my time with America's newest money sink.
Okay, quick disclaimer. I know most people kind of skip past this part because they don't give a shit because they're already watching the video, but I feel like I have to have it anyway. I'm going to be talking a lot about the hypotheticals, the conceptual, the whatever of the 6.8, which means I'm going to be doing a lot of talking outside of my lane. So yeah, keep that in mind. I'm just a regular dude that fucks around in the mountains of Utah, so you need to take a lot of what I say here with a grain of salt. If you want a more experienced opinion about the 6.8, go watch Henry from 9 Hole Reviews' take on the 6.8 program. He has a whole video on it, and I think that might actually be a little bit more valuable than me running my mouth here. But hey, this is my video, so roll the clip.
So let's talk about 6.8. Sort of. Well, we need to address the elephant in the room. And that is that the 6.8 and XM7 program, whatever you want to call it, the rollout has been an unmitigated disaster. And even if the concept was amazing and everything was sound, the execution has been anything but. Cappy has made a video on the subject, and it does a really good job of recounting the numerous issues. But if you want the abridged version, augmented stuff I've heard via DMs, internet forums, and through conversation with those that have actually shot this on both sides of the aisles, military and development, the overall near unanimous assessment for those that aren't vested into this thing succeeding, and probably get a paycheck from SIG, is that the gun and ammo are just not ready for prime time. The round itself is a massive pain in the asshole to produce, with both Winchester with Lake City and SIG itself having huge failure rates in making the round with really bad yield rates, as well as consistency and accuracy issues. I don't have concrete numbers, and even if I did, I don't think I can share them, but let's just say that for every successful case of ammunition produced, there is a non-insignificant percentage that just has to go in the trash can. One of the major objectives of this gun is the SP round, or the special purpose round. Most people just call it the AP round. It doesn't exist as far as I know. Granted, the information I receive is a little bit out of date at any given time, but as of writing this video, as far as I know, they're not at all into the testing because there isn't even a functional TDP for the thing yet. The gun itself is getting its ass kicked by the insane PSI with extreme low round counts before accuracy begins to degrade with fire crackling of the barrel, and some of them are, dying outright in the mid 5,000 rounds, and the gun definitely needs major replacements past that. Overall, if we went to war right now, or even upwards in likely of 3 years, this gun is just going to get sidelined immediately. There isn't enough ammo to even field it in a peacetime environment, let alone a wartime one, and the gun itself has unacceptably low lifespan before encountering issues.
Hi, it's Brass Facts here. Fun sidebar. Training with 6.8 kind of sucks logistically because even the reduced range 113 grains are putting massive divots in my steel target. It's kind of cool looking until you realize these things are like $250 a pop.
So this wouldn't be the first time that a program has had a ton of issues, then we throw a medium-sized country's worth of US tax dollars at the problem is fixed, and then we're left with something good. Now, for reasons that I'll really get into, I don't think that's going to be the case with the 6.8 NGSW. However, the 6.8 round, or at least the concept of the 6.8 round, I think has a lot of promise. For starters, 6mm is kind of the holy grail diameter, and maybe in the battle rifle form, it's not a great idea. However, in the sniper role or in the MMG role, I think there's a lot of potential for a very, very flat shooting round that are pushing, frankly, hilarious velocities. Similarly, just the base concept itself, overpressuring around to achieve higher velocities via the usage of stronger materials, be it steel, or in this case, a hybrid steel case, is the direction I think small arms munitions is going to take. And had it not been with the 6.8, had it instead been with something like, I don't know, say 6 ARC, 6.5 Grendel, Arma 3's favorite cartridge, 6.8 SPC. Actually, apparently that thing is a really good round in terms of performance and balance. Or, even a slightly overpressured 5.56 round using the A1 bullet has a lot of potential as just a general purpose rifle that can both do long range, up close, and everything in between. Unfortunately, there's a bigger problem here that can't be solved with taxpayer dollars. Namely, the 6.8 and the SIG Spear is a battle rifle. And battle rifles come with a lot of issues that fundamentally can't be solved because they relate to the unchangeable aspects of human physique. These are extremely heavy, they are large, unwieldy, and even with a short boy 13-inch barrel, they are harder to shoot, and worst of all, ammo capacity is catastrophically kneecapped. 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, and now 6.8 fortunately fit all in the same magazine, so we can do the same comparisons we've done in the past when discussing battle rifles, so I'm going to reuse some of my footage from that video. The fundamental issue is you are running into a triple jeopardy whammy. 308 pattern magazines are almost double the width of 5.56 magazines, so the chest space that we usually have allocated for 3 5.56 magazines typically only has room for 2, at least on stuff like plate gears. And with these 2 magazines, you are also carrying 5 but probably 10 less rounds per magazine. Also, these magazines weigh about double those 3 5.56 magazines. A quick way to visualize it. In the most optimistic setup of all time, which is a double stack 3x2 setup with 308 magazines, you end up with 7 magazines, which is 140 rounds. That's it. Now obviously both loadouts have a good chunk, if not most of their ammo being carried in the rucksack, but more weight is more weight, and the rucksack is a critical component carrying other mission essential stuff: tripods, food, water, ammunition for more important weapon systems. The list goes on. Reports of training exercises are not looking promising, with units basically going black on ammo within about 30 minutes of contact. Response to this? Well, shoot less apparently, which is going to be one hell of a lesson that's probably going to cost lives. Now we can argue that the US Army is becoming increasingly mechanized, and ammo resupply doesn't matter when your Humvee or JLTV has 10x the ammo in the trunk 2 minutes that way. Once again, I'm not a warfighter, infantryman, or whatever, but that seems to be a very slippery slope to go down, especially given the fact that America is an expeditionary force first and foremost, and our next great war is probably going to be on small islands or contested peninsulas. And this gun, like single-handedly kneecapping the ability for units to act as light infantry due to the utterly brutal ammo economy of this thing, seems like a really bad sacrifice to make.
So Chris, when we deploy to Tehran, this is what we're getting. What do you think?
LA.
Oh, you're going to LA?
I don't like it.
What's the issue?
It's too heavy, dude.
Does have a lot of bullshit.
I did strap a lot of bullshit to it.
We can take the can off and see if that helps, but it probably won't.
Well, the gun is unshootable without the can.
Why?
Concussion.
Really? Like worse than 308?
Oh yeah.
Significant.
Really?
I think a lot of people are going to point to the XM157 fire control optic to kind of tie this whole package together. And yes, in theory, it can really utilize the effective range of the round. But I have my reservations about this thing as well. It seems like something that would look really good on a qual range with brightly lit targets at extreme distances where you can kind of write it all down and be like, oh look, the soldier is now more accurate. But this gun is being praised for being a laser beam out to 500 meters. So conservatively, in a infantry on infantry near peer combat, 90% of engagements, you won't even need the thing. You're going to be well within the mean point blank range of the rifle. As you extend out to range, oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be some added utility here. Though once again, marksmanship is marksmanship, and even if you know where to aim, we gotta remember, like, the soldier's skill actually has to correspond with the ability to shoot at 800 plus yards. Similarly, like, yeah, it's going to have a kind of a cool niche between, say, 400 and maybe 700 meters. But once we get to 1,000 plus meters, as this gun often is like kind of bragged to be able to do, you got to remember that this thing is 8x only. And when you're shooting that far, that low of a magnification is probably going to be the predominant limiting factor at shooting at people that don't want to be shot at that are also wearing camo, not a correct ranging estimate. Also, a even more fun juxtaposition to point out, even if this thing does get issued, it's being billed as this seamless fire control unit where you sort of just have the laser rangefinder on your grip, so when you bring the gun up, boom, you already have a firing solution. But this thing is an LRF. You're vomiting out a laser beam every time you use the thing. How many times will a unit commander tolerate being compromised at night or blowing an ambush because a dude mistakenly squeezed off his tape switch, setting off all the laser warning receivers on the vehicles before just ripping them off all of the rifles? I don't know. I think it has a lot of promise, like tracking point, but once again, a similar story throughout. Probably not a good call on a general infantry rifle. Also, just a really funny sidebar. I've heard some internal testing. When this thing fails, it's supposed to fail clear. That is, when it has issues, the thing just turns itself off and you can continue using the scope. But apparently, right now at least, when it fails, it tends to throw up error codes on the screen. Cool, dude, I'd love to get killed in downtown Beijing because my scope blue screened.
That's a mighty fine ass.
Fun.
You having fun?
It's more fun than shooting guns.
Shooting sucks.
Hot and noisy. Expensive. Bad for your lungs. It's bad for your guns.
It's bad for your resale value.
Yeah, your resale value suffers most of all. Won't somebody please think of the resale value?
So that's the video. Thanks for sitting through this very, very long one. I tried to be thorough, but that's going to come at the expense of being a much, much longer video. But I figured there's a lot of 6.8 content out there that is very short and concise. I wanted this one to be thorough, so we covered the optic, the gun, the round, and all in one. So yeah, for those that stuck with it all, thank you very much. I put a decent amount of effort into making this thing of a certain quality. Let's kind of round out my thoughts on this thing. From a civilian perspective, this, as a package, it's almost nonsensical. The battle rifle and the ammo together are so expensive that this is a toy for most people, especially given that the performance is just not there. That being said, the round itself might have potential, but even that presently is so damn expensive and kind of mediocre that who can really recommend that over just a normal 18-inch semi-auto 6.5 Creedmoor setup? It'll be cheaper by a factor of 5x, more accurate, and in general do the things that civilians tend to want to do with larger calibers. Though, I would not be surprised that, especially as 6.8 rifles begin to come on the market that can handle the medium Chooch hybrid rounds, those rounds come down in price and more importantly become a little bit more accurate. This ends up actually being a quite strong competitor to 6.5 Creedmoor. Once again, assuming it actually survives and has the legs to get to that point. From the military perspective, I've actually warmed to this thing. Sort of. A lot of the individual components, once fully realized, do bear out some potential. The round itself has a number of niches that it would actually do quite well in. MMG is a big one that's brought up, and that makes sense given that the XM7 is actually chooching along pretty well in its program lifespan. The concept of a spear kind of K assaulter gun, as sort of a one per unit type thing, absolutely has some pretty notable potential given the fact that soft guys are already running around with 6.5 Creedmoor SBRs. As a sniper in a more accurate gun, both as a DMR kind of setup or as a dedicated sniper system, both bears a decent amount of potential. The fire control optic, once again, is something that seems pretty decent if it was to be fully fledged out, perhaps on machine guns, perhaps on emplaced guns, or even, once again, in that sort of DMR type role. All in all, basically what I'm saying, the round and the rifle itself, the military has always needed and wanted a sort of battle rifle for certain select scenarios. The fundamental issue with this gun is that for whatever reason, the brass has decided, you know what? Everyone's got to have it. And that's probably where the fundamental issue is. This is not a good general issue rifle. I was going to talk about that more, but as I was wrapping up this video, a kind of old video crept up on my YouTube video that I haven't seen in quite a while. In it, Chuck Pressburg on a primary and secondary panel discusses 308 versus 556. Now, 6.8 is not 308. It is significantly better and somehow worse. But the discussion here is kind of caliber agnostic because it's more of a logistical conversation, and it repeats a lot of the core issues I've heard with the 6.8 program, that until there is a pressing need, it remains to be a fundamental core issue that can't be fixed with taxpayer dollars because it's inherent or intrinsic to the concept. I'm going to trim down and pull out the highlights, but I suggest you watch the full 15-minute clip, or if you got a long road trip ahead of you, watch the 4-hour podcast. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching. See you guys later.
If there is not a terminal ballistic reason why you need to carry a 7.62 cartridge, then you should not be carrying a 7.62 cartridge. Potentially maybe a niche, throw a mag, a black tip in for some type of vehicle defeat of a light skinned vehicle or something. But even then, I would say that the vast majority of vehicles that I've seen stopped are fluid loss due to hose puncture, potentially starting secondary fires and or electrical failure as a result of disruption of the wiring package. So when we throw all of that in with, let's compound that on top of our soldiers can't shoot. Therefore, every round they fire that is as heavy as 2 rounds that is a miss, double their miss probability per round of their basic load by capita, however you want to work that factor out. So 75 misses when you're carrying 120 bullets is much worse than 75 misses when you're carrying 210 bullets. Or your hit probability, increasing it by increasing the amount of bullets that you're carrying. So every 2.556 rounds is a spoiler shot followed by another shot compared to every 7.62 round that's fired. And spoiler shots are a thing. We've all seen it. If I thought that our chain of command was smart enough that they would maintain the same amount of magazines carried, reduce the total number of rounds the soldier carries as such, I could almost feel good about this. But we won't. We'll fuck it up. And if they're making them carry 7 mags now, they're going to make them carry 7 mags or 9 mags or 10 mags or 11 mags of 7.62. And that's going to get you into second, third order effects. In addition to the sheer weight put on the soldier, reducing his effectiveness, increasing fatigue. You're also going to increase bulk on the soldier. The soldier's bulk is going to go exponentially. I already fight trying to get soldiers to stop carrying double stack magazines on their front. It's going to become a requirement. You're going to have to do it. There's going to be no real estate not to. I walked in there, and it was this element had been had deployed with battle rifles, and there were crates of loaded M118LR, and I was like, "What is all this?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, yeah, we ran battle rifles. That shit lasted 2 weeks." So these guys were on a full tour, and in the first 2 weeks, under the arms room concept, the idea of having a sexy 7.62 battle rifle went right out the window, and those guys were back to carrying 10-inch and 14-inch 5.56 weapons. So, we've been down this road. I've been down this road. I just can't get on board with somebody telling me that there is a material defeat threat reason to burden every soldier and our logistics system with a caliber change. This really, really, really starts to sound like the XSAPI program. There's a threat that can defeat our SAPI plates, so we need to make a threat that'll stop it. Not that threat's ever been seen in the AOR that our guys are fighting in. And we invested millions of dollars at the end of the free Bush money. All of those plates sit in a warehouse waiting for this magical magazine of fucking magic bullets that, we're going to bring a dude in on a slab and be like, "Oh my gosh, look at his ESAPI plate. Whatever shot him went through him like a hot knife through butter." And then we're going to call down to Kuwait, and 15 C-17s are going to swoop in and start handing out plates to everybody. You know why? You know why that plan has to be that asinine? Because those plates are so fucking stupid and heavy that even the generals know putting that shit on our soldiers right now when that threat does not present itself is tantamount to fucking negligence. And we're about to do the same thing with a rifle. We're about to do the same fucking thing with a rifle.
You like the snack? That's a beer, Nova. You're an alcoholic.
Her liver.
That's violent.
Between energy drinks and sugar and everything else, I don't know how I don't have failing organs.
Dude.
What if like this was in food fight?